Many studies have examined the popular beliefs about poverty in the United States. For example, in a 1969 national sample, 17 adults were asked by Fijian to respond to a series of 11 statements about the cause of poverty. A majority felt lack of thrift, lack of effort, and lack of ability by the poor were very important reasons for poverty, and a near majority, 48%, thought loose morals and drunkenness were very important. The percentage of respondents indicating structural causes, such as low wages, lack of jobs, or discrimination as very important was substantially less. The study of poverty has been dominated by 3 questions. Are the poor different from other people? 2. If so, how different are the poor? And 3. How deep are these differences? The dominance of these questions is unfortunate not because they lack any significance, but because they have detracted interest from more important questions about the nature of our society that helps produce poverty. Despite the abundance of research showing that the vast majority of poor, like anyone else, would rather have a decent job than receive welfare, research funding continues studies that find, to no one's surprise, that the poor prefer jobs over welfare. The abundance of such research tells us more about our social myths than about the poor. The reason can be traced, to a large part, to the American obsession with individualism. Looking at American individualism can help us understand better: 1. How the general population tends to view the poor in American society. 2. What some of the particular problems faced by the poor are. 3. How our present welfare system is designed. And 4. What some of the main points of the individualistic theories mean. In broad terms, individualism is based on the belief that the individual is more important than the social group. For many of you, the answer requires little thought, but in many non-Western cultures, the individual is often of secondary importance. The collective is given preference over the needs and particular interests of the individual. The general value of individualism has very wide implications for society. It usually means, for example, government should not infringe upon the rights of individuals, giving us our value of freedom. The importance of free competition in business and economic pursuits conveys the ideal of equality of opportunity, whereby people should have the opportunity to better themselves, or to be upwardly mobile. Most important for our discussion, individualism can mean that people are held responsible for their own lot in life. That is, because equality of opportunity is supposed to exist, those who are poor have only themselves to blame for their poverty. It is recognized, however, that there are special circumstances in which a person is relieved of responsibility for his or her poverty. To some degree, society has been willing to recognize the unique problems of poverty for the elderly, the disabled, and children. These people are the deserving poor. 3 kinds of theories: culture of poverty, situational view, and structural view. Beginning with the first figure, we find a representation of the dominant culture or popular view. In short, the poor and their characteristics cause their poverty. The second diagram represents the main points of the culture of poverty view. This theory suggests that social conditions originally helped to produce poverty, broken line, but most importantly, this theory argues that poverty produces people with unique personal characteristics that in turn help ensure that they and their children remain poor. Situational theories of poverty, Figure 3, place more importance on social conditions as the cause of poverty. However, they do suggest that poverty produces people with particular characteristics, although these characteristics are not viewed as a compounding cause of poverty. In the structural view, there is almost complete stress on the political and economic forces in the society that produce and maintain poverty. Culture of poverty. The most noted culture of poverty theory is that of Oscar Lewis. There are 5 major points in this theory. 1. Because of the conditions of poverty, the poor are presented with unique problems in living, compared with the non-poor. 2. In order to cope with these problems, the poor follow a unique lifestyle. 3. Through collective interaction and in the face of relative isolation from the non-poor, this unique lifestyle becomes a common characteristic of the poor, producing common values, attitudes, and behavior. 3. A common subculture is developed. 4. Once this common subculture of poverty has become institutionalized, it is self-perpetuating. 4. That is, it becomes independent of the social conditions of poverty that helped produce the subculture. 4. The values, attitudes, and behavior that are a part of this subculture are passed on to the children of the poor, that is, the children are socialized into this subculture of poverty. 5. Because this subculture is believed to shape the basic character and personality of people raised in poverty, even if opportunities to become non-poor arise, the poor will retain the traits that allowed them to adjust to the original conditions of poverty. 5. Thus, the poor will not be able to adjust to the new situation through values and behavior that will allow them to take advantage of new opportunities to become non-poor. Many characteristics of a culture of poverty have been listed by social scientists. For example, on a community level, there is a lack of participation in the institutions of the wider society except for contact with the criminal justice system and welfare institutions. On a family level, there is the absence of a long childhood, early initiation into sex, and female-headed households. On the individual level, the poor are believed to have strong feelings of marginality, of helplessness, of dependence, and of inferiority. Other individual characteristics include lack of impulse control, little ability to defer gratification, a present-time orientation. Male superiority is stressed, and a high tolerance for psychological pathology of all sorts. Kerbo points out that the culture of poverty theory is logical, clear, and, perhaps most important, fits nicely most of the common stereotypes of the poor held by the dominant society. It is easy to see why government officials and welfare administrators favor this theory, for although it fits these stereotypes of the poor, it maintains the tradition of ultimately seeing the society as part of the problem. The goal then becomes one of changing the poor rather than aspects of the society. Blame the victim. Criticisms. There is no evidence to suggest the values of the poor differ from those of the non-poor because of their condition of poverty. The poor may not be able to live up to the ideal they value equally with the non-poor. Example: steal to feed their family. 1. In common with functional theory in general, the culture of poverty theory assumes an overly uniform view of culture and values in industrial societies. 2. Variance in actual behavior differs among all groups in society. 2. Child rearing, gratification. 2. If we speak of a subculture of the poor, we can also speak of a subculture of college students, professors, politicians, etc. 3. These differences reflect rather than cause class position. 4. The poor do not constitute a homogeneous group. As a group, the poor do differ from the middle class on some characteristics, such as family stability and work history. Some studies have found somewhat lower aspirations for education, occupation, and income. The situational view of poverty offers a more realistic explanation for these differences in characteristics and behavior. The situational view argues that the poor may sometimes behave differently or have different lifestyles and preferences because they are poor, lack secure jobs, or simply lack opportunities to live up to values held by most of society. In other words, the poor are reacting realistically to their situation. The situational view rejects the idea: 1. That the poor would prefer not to live up to most values by a majority in the society, or 2. That the differences found result from deeply held values. Hyman Rodman 1963 introduced the concept of lower-class value stretch to society. They learn to accept behavior that does not meet these ideal values. Differences between the culture of poverty theory and the situational view of poverty seem trivial, but they are not. They view the causes of poverty in a very different light. For the culture of poverty theory, the characteristics of the poor are part of the problem. The situational view of poverty, although the poor may have some differences from the middle class, the differences are not part of the causes of poverty, only a reflection of their situation. Structural view of poverty. If a focus on group conflict and unequal resources of political and economic power can help us understand social stratification and inequality in general, it can also help us understand poverty. As noted earlier, Weber viewed the occupational structure as a situation of conflict and competition in the marketplace. Those with greater skills that are in demand and are relatively scarce, can demand and receive higher wages and maintain more secure jobs. The large number of poor competing for low-level jobs reduces their chances for secure jobs as wage levels even when jobs are found. Furthermore, many of the jobs that require no skill or low skill are being eliminated by technological advances. A structural feature of capitalist industrial societies that helps produce and maintain poverty is related to the necessity of business cycles. Unemployment is often consciously produced by government economic policies as byproduct of a planned economic slowdown intended to reduce inflation.